Well, hello, everyone. Now we've reached a milestone. We've finished the midterm, and I wanted to go over a little bit about the midterm essay. I sent you out an answer guide that kind of went over what the answers should have been, and then you could contrast it with what you did. Um, the essay in the email, I often just refer to the essay as, not a lot of points taken off, but you might want to check out the instructor video that kind of goes over it a little bit, because you want to make sure you see that you met the parameters of what was asked. We talked about finding or identifying her thesis, and then whether you agreed or disagreed, and then fallacies that you identified. Now, her thesis. She's talking about the way that AZT is being distributed in Africa, and she talked about the fact that in order to try to maximize the distribution, because there were limited resources, the country itself couldn't pay for it, so this was kind of charitable giving. And to do that in the scientific world, you sometimes do what's known as a placebo, which is something that doesn't have any content, and then you measure that against giving 20% and 40% and 80% of the drug, and to see where the differences kick in. In other words, you're looking for the efficacy. You're looking to make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak. That how you can see the best way to distribute the dosage in a way that would maximize the greatest good for the greatest number. Okay. So her thesis was along the lines of a double standard, and it was a double moral standard that she was actually after, the idea that you would distribute AZT differently in Africa as you would distribute it in your own country. Now remember, all the AZT is coming from America. And so the distribution, because it was a double standard, was immoral. And then she made some other claims that we'll talk about in a moment. If you get, Ellen Goodman is kind of not around so much anymore because people don't read newspapers. But Ellen Goodman used to write columns, and she didn't work for a particular newspaper. She just wrote editorials, and then different newspapers would decide to purchase her editorials. The editorial staff at a newspaper would look at what she had available, and then they'd say, oh yeah, this is a good article, we'll run this one, and they would give her some sort of a royalty. Well, the fact that people don't read newspapers too much anymore is kind of probably put a crimp in that. But another place that Ellen Goodman got a lot of attention was in critical thinking textbooks. Now, the one you have is, one that I authored to reduce the cost of the textbook, the class text. But in the past, I used other textbooks, and they were sent to me. I was always getting them in my mailbox at the campus, and almost every one of them had an Ellen Goodman article in it. And it wasn't often complimentary, because they felt the authors of those essays, or excuse me, of those texts, felt that she kind of shot from the hip, didn't necessarily think through what she was offering. So let's look at this double standard thing. Okay, so is a double standard of and in itself morally indecent? That's kind of the first question. Well, yeah, I think it could be. You could have a situation. It could be something like we all heard this one. Look, if a guy has a bunch of girlfriends, he's kind of cool, and if a girl has a bunch of boyfriends, it's like she's maybe not right or something. I don't know if those things are still talked about by the younger generation. In my day, that was kind of a thing. But it was clearly a double standard. It kind of seemed like discrimination, and a judgment based on unfairness, so to speak. So what would really be the difference? How many boyfriends or girlfriends different opposite sex had? That's trivial, but in other more serious ways, look at what if I had a double standard for how I was grading you all? I liked all the people that had the last name that started A through H, and I didn't like people I through Z or some ridiculous thing. It might be a double standard, and it would be wrong on a number of levels, including a moral level, I would think. what about another kind of double standard? How about people who are held to higher standards? Because that's a double standard. So let's use an example. Suppose you have a priest who does something that's beyond belief in my view. I mean, molesting children. That's pretty terrible. In fact, that's really bad. It seems like, and it's gotten a lot of publicity. The same crime committed by someone not in the priesthood, let's say the person was a carpenter, would be still very bad, but the judgment made against the priest is going to be worse because the person was just held to a higher standard, like, let's say, a police officer who gets arrested for DUI off duty. That's going to be different the way people look at that. That person swore to uphold the laws, and he's held to a higher standard, or she's held to a higher standard. In terms of giving, we also have double standards. I mean, you take care of your family. That's kind of your first obligation, especially if you're a parent. You have a legal obligation to feed and clothe and properly, take care of. You could be in trouble if you didn't do those things and you had the means to do them with the law. But normally speaking, the family unit's very important, and we have one standard in terms of how we distribute our family wealth to our family. It's clearly not the same standard as how you distribute the wealth to the rest of the neighborhood. That's a double standard. So my point is, her notion that a double standard of how we charitably give in Africa of our resources, as opposed to how we give within our own country's boundaries, with our own citizens, is a double standard, but it doesn't make all double standards immoral. So I was looking for some of that, for you to notice some of that. In terms of the analogies, unbelievable to say that, she doesn't explicitly say, well, this is just like the Nazi experiments, Tuskegee. What happened in Tuskegee was beyond belief. In order to see how the progression of syphilis would occur without penicillin, black males in that county, Tuskegee, were not given anything, and others were given the proper dose. I mean, this was brutal, and the Nazi war experiments were beyond belief. I don't even want to go into them. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they did to people that were, prisoners or people in the concentration camps. That's not what we're doing in Africa. Not by a long shot. Like I said at the beginning, what we're trying to do is distribute charity. And in distributing charity, we're trying to find out what the best dosage is. Now, it is true that, persons who would get the placebos would not be getting any benefit. But they would also not be getting any benefit if we weren't trying to distribute charity. I mean, you could eliminate the double standard by just not doing anything. And that doesn't seem to make sense. So let me just go to the second point here. I'm trying to watch my time a little bit because I'm using a format that doesn't allow me just to go on and on, which is probably a good thing for you all. So in terms of a change in direction, we've been doing a lot of work with the informal fallacies, little induction and deduction, and some other aspects of critical thinking, plus some informal and actually the deduction and induction is sometimes called formal logic. We're going to have a change in direction because from this point forward, we're going to focus more on some writing skills. We're going to be looking at another essay for you to go over, and then do some discussion board exercises with that essay, and then also you'll be doing a writing exercise and writing homework, and then finally for quiz 4 you'll have an opportunity to do a kind of mini position paper where you really want to have the elements. You want to be able to have a thesis. It's an I paper, what your opinion is, and then defend that opinion, that thesis, with good argument, correlated with the essay, and also be able to identify something that would count against your argument, which is a rebuttal component where you address something that might be offered to suggest that your thesis is not on the right page, and you have to respond to that and say, well, wait a minute, some might say the following, and I would offer this response. And you're going to see how that's done in the Peter Singer essay. That's the essay we're going to move into, where Peter Singer himself identifies some things that could be offered against what he's trying to advocate, and then provides a response to that. So I don't want to make this very long. In this type of course, you always want to focus, out the front windshield. I mean, we don't want to forget what's in the rearview mirror. We want to apply things that we've learned in order to make this change in direction. But we also want to focus on what we can do to maximize our point, so to speak. I put myself in your shoes. I know you're motivated. You want to do well. And so this is now, we're entering a kind of developmental stage where I'll work with you by giving you feedback on your essays, working with another essay, and then eventually we'll move into some areas for the final paper selection. And my goal is to help you as best I can from in this distant education format to kind of get up to speed to where you need to be, so that you can not only do the kind of work that that gets you good points, but the kind of work that if you looked at it a year from now, you'd say, you know what, I put some good thinking into that essay. I did a good job. I learned something from the critical thinking course, and that's going to be useful for me. Okay, folks. Well, that kind of concludes what I wanted to say after the midterm and about the midterm essay. And then I wish you all continued success in this course, and there'll be other videos for you.